Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome, and thanks for being here. My apologies for releasing this episode a day late. I went to Bleecker Trade Night in New York City last night. We didn't get back till after midnight. Sports card therapist and we went down together. We recorded a recap, but there was some technical difficulties getting me the file. So I'm dropping this episode today, and I will get that. I will drop that over the weekend right here as well. Um, but before we jump into this episode, I just wanted to shout out a few of the listeners that stopped by the trade night last night. Shout out to my man Brian on Instagram at Fire FYRE Cards, Fire Cards. He's a firefighter. He was visiting New York City on his way to Cooperstown, but heard about the trade night on the podcast, and he decided to stay till 6 so he could get over and meet us before they got on the road. And Cooperstown's like a 4.5 hour, 5 hour drive from the city. So just shout out to him and his wife who agreed to let him stay so he can get over and meet us. So shout out to both of them, and hope you had a great trip to Cooperstown. Also, shout out to Will, who is a teacher in Hawaii, and he was home in New York during, for school break, summer school break. So he stopped by. Great conversation with him. He was there with his dad. I mean, really, isn't that what it's all about? Family, friends, getting out to a card like trade show or trade night or card show, any of that, anything to do in the hobby. But man, it's so nice to meet listeners at these events. I keep saying this. It's what really recharges my battery when listeners stop by at these events and the shows, and they come to see me and tell me that they, they're listeners and how much they like the podcast. Um, I mean, that to me, that's what it's all about. I really look forward to that. So if I'm out anywhere, if I'm at a trade night, if I'm at any type of show and you're there, please stop by, come say hello, because you all know me, you all see me, and hear me every week. But I'd love to see and hear you guys as well. So let's jump into it today. I talked about when I jumped back into the hobby a few years ago that I all I was doing was ripping wax, and in fact, I started ripping baseball because I had a friend, and if you go way back to season 1, episode 1 or 2, I talk about a friend of mine I played golf with who was talking about baseball cards and really got me going in ripping, ripping wax, and I was all in pretty quick. I went pretty crazy, buying the mega boxes from Target and things like that. And it was, just pre and during pandemic. So it was really hard to get those boxes. Um, then I fully jumped into the hobby 2 years ago, where I wasn't just doing the hobby at home. I wasn't just ordering these boxes or going and buying these boxes and ripping them. I was actually going out and participating and doing things, and started setting up at shows and really getting involved. But I was still ripping wax and getting into breaks. But the wax, I mean, I ripped the wax probably so probably, I guess, about a year ago. I mean, there was just so many disappointing boxes that just completely turned me off from ripping wax. And I talked about that. I said, you're better off. I'm a perfect example to tell you you're better off buying the card. Um, and I've done really well, uh, just buying the cards instead of, opening up the packs and the boxes. Um, I did for a while in 2021. I kept buying football. In 2021, I bought a lot of football because I just knew there were, and I talked about this, there was a number of quarterbacks and top players. I thought it was a great draft class, so I bought a number of the blasters and the mega boxes and just put them away. And there was some cellos and hangers in there as well. And with the baseball, um, in 2022, I bought all the baseball boxes, but I never opened them. I just saved them. I just kept putting them away. Just hoping that they would mature in value, that they would be, worth more down the road. Uh, so it was 2021 football, 2022 baseball, um, blasters, mega boxes, cellos, hangers, you know, fast forward, didn't open them, just put them away. Fast forward to this year with the release of the 2023 National Women's Soccer League, the NWSL, the Parkside hobby boxes. Now, these boxes, the price of the hobby boxes is close to a retail mega box, believe it or not. And you're guaranteed an auto and a bunch of decent parallels in there. And I kind of felt that this was like a hidden gem. Like if you were, into the women's soccer, or, you know, you were buying these I mean, they're already sold out. They didn't last long. I think they lasted a month and sold out, but the price was so good on them. I ordered 10 of these hobby boxes. Um, and it was the first time I started ripping, again, and they all came probably within the last, I would say 3 weeks. 3, 4 weeks. So I didn't order all 10 together. I ordered 4, then I ordered 3, and then I ordered 3 more. And it was, like I said, it was cheap, but it was pretty rewarding, rip for sure. So those boxes are all dried up. I've opened all those boxes, getting ready for the national, putting my my singles boxes together. Came across some Trevor Lawrence prisms, so I started looking up some prices, and I saw that the Trevor Lawrence, the prism silver, is almost 3K. And I was shaking my head. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, 3K. How could this be? And I can't tell you how many of those cars I owned at one time in 2021, and moved them right along. But then I looked up the pop count, and I realized the PSA 10 is super low. So obviously the car just doesn't grade well at all. Um, I mean, if you compare him to, and I don't know why, but if you compare him to all the other quarterbacks in that 2021 draft class, their pop count on the PSA 10s are up like 1,500 to 2,000, and I think his were, maybe a few hundred, and it could have even been less. I forget the exact amount of that, but it was pretty low. So I started thinking to myself, do I have any prism boxes, put away, so my stash? So I go through and I look through, see what I had, and I did have some prism cellos, the ones that came with like 12 cards in them, and um, definitely low value, the lowest, I guess, the lowest packs you could have gotten on the prism. So I checked the prices on them, and they were still the same as probably what I paid for them in retail. Um, so I pulled those out. I ripped through them. I got a number of Trevor, a number of rookie cards, but none prism. I got a number of, all the rookies that year, but no prisms, just the base rookies on it. And just those base rookies would cover, the cost of what that cello was. And that was okay, because I'm building a box, I'm building boxes to go out to the nationals. So I don't mind putting these in. I have a couple rows of 2021 rookies, so I have no problem putting those in. Um, I also had some optic and select cellos, and select hangers. Um, so I looked up the hangers online, and I'm like, okay, I convinced myself that they're probably a good value, right? Hangers are bangers. So I ripped off 5 of the select hangers I had, and that was pretty fruitful. I mean, there was a ton in each one. There was like 4 or 5 prism die cuts, and 4 of the 5 had mostly all quarterbacks in it. So that was a pretty fruitful little rip there. Again, great for the singles boxes going to nationals. Um, at that point, I was like, you know what? Pack all this stuff up, all these blasters, these megas, the cellos, all that stuff. I got to get them back in the closet. Then I sat down. I'm like, boy, that escalated fast, right? I went from the women's soccer, which was a decent rip, and then here I was, and now this is 2023, so this stuff's been sitting in the closet for 2 years, right? This 2021 stuff, and as quickly as I pulled it out, I started opening back up again, and I'm like, "What is it? The gambler in me that?" I mean, I think if I would have sat there long enough, I would have convinced myself to start opening up a couple of the blasters or the megas, and it's certainly not the money, it's definitely the chase, and it's looking for that needle in a haystack, and it's interesting, with fanatics taking over and wanting to, saying they're going to 10x the hobby and things like that. I mean, I wonder what it just got me thinking. I wonder what level of this is going to be the wax. I mean, I know all the cars are all pack pulled at some point, right? But where the real money is in these cards are these boxes that very few people can afford. Very few people can go out and say, "Oh, I'm just going to go out and buy a National Treasures hobby box or something." I mean, it's mostly breaks, right? And even the breaks, you look, so I was in a bunch of breaks, and I still get notifications of breaks, through my Instagram and through Facebook. And I shake my head sometimes. I like, especially this year for the 2022 class, um, where they're saying, "Oh, we're gonna rip, a whole case of, whatever it is," and then I look at the price, it's like $900, and it's a random team. And I'm like, I mean, I just couldn't do it. As much as I like the chase and I like the rip wax and I like to watch the breaks, and I was in many, many breaks, there's a limit to the money that I would put out. And that's probably why I don't own any of those huge cards, because I'm not willing to put that kind of money out to take a chance, because I get disappointed if I go open up a blaster box, right, for 30, 40, or $50 and I don't get anything in it. Could you imagine how I'm going to feel if I put out 8, 900, $1,000 to get into a break and I don't get a card? I did jump into some breaks with the women's for Trinity Rodman and the Don Russ soccer for this year. And they were also the select soccer this year. Now the Don Russ was pretty cheap. You could get into like, I could buy, it was, player, you buy a player, I could buy Trinity Rodman, right? And it may cost me like 30 or 40 or $50. And I would get a number of cards. There was always, and it was a whole case. They were ripping a whole case. So there was a good amount of numbered cards and base cards and all kinds of cards I would get. And then the select came, and I'm like, oh, I think I'll get into a select. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the prices of select, and the Trinity Rodman spot's selling for 150, 185, 200, 240, $300. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, there must be some unbelievable cards in there. And then I sit down and I watch some of these break, that they put, and they didn't pull one Trinity Rodman. I'm like, "Oh my god, I would be beside myself if I put out 250 or $300 and they opened a whole case and I didn't get one card, not one card." I finally found a select two. I got into two selects that were I got into under $100, and one of them I hit a white prism numbered to 20, which was like a $250 card. So I felt okay, that was good, So I took a chance and I went and got into another one right around 80 or $90. And they ripped the whole case, and there was one Trinity Rodman base card that came out of that. And then it was so disappointing, and I thought to myself, "Man," I'm like, "I'm upset over this, over losing this little bit over that." And I don't know, I just can't imagine putting out more of that. And then I rebound back to myself, like, just opening, and I think what I'm doing, what happens to me when I'm opening this wax is probably just amplified right? For I guess if people have the means, it amplifies much higher, up the line. I say the means. I'm sure a lot of people have the means, but are willing to, are willing to part with that, are willing to take that chance to put out, that bigger money to get those cards. And I understand. I mean, high risk, high reward. I mean, I think that's probably any part of life, right? Not just in this hobby. Um, mm. And when I opened up the select hangers, you know, I thought to myself, thankfully, that the hangers that I opened, the 5 hangers, paid for those 5 hangers and the prism cellos that I opened. Because, if I would have sold those at that time, that it was all paid for. So I don't know, is it a justification? Do I justify it to myself like, oh, okay, it was okay. But I have to sell those cards, right? Those cards aren't sold yet. It's not like, oh, I've got the card, put the cash in my hand. Now I've got to go off and sell those cards somewhere. Um, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that those other boxes I have, there's more value in those boxes sealed than ever to open up. So I'm controlling myself that much to say, putting all those boxes away, right? And not open those up and hopefully the value of those go up. I think the baseball one now, someone just mentioned to me that the 2022 mega boxes were up and I looked them up and they're over double what I originally paid for them. So I mean, now would be a great time to sell, and who knows, it could go up even more, or whoever the chase card in there, that player could get hurt, or next thing you know, they're down. So I'm definitely on the baseball, anyways. I'm definitely going to look into possibly moving those boxes sooner rather than later, but definitely not going to open them. Uh, I can say on the women's soccer with 100% certainty that they're the only hobby boxes I open that I found more value in 6 of those 10 boxes. There were more value in the cards than the cost of the box. Now, when I tell you that these boxes, there were, $85 for a hobby box, and if you had certain codes, you could get certain discounts off. So, I had certain codes, so these boxes ended up costing me in the $60 range. Now, I know, mega boxes could run $59, right? So, just slightly more than a mega box, for these boxes here. Now I know, women's soccer is not as big as football and basketball and men's soccer, but there is a pretty big market out there for these cards. Um, I'm part of the NWSL Facebook group, and, like, I see a lot of these transactions going on, people selling these cards back and forth, and I'm communicating with these people, I'm getting to know who they are on eBay now. I know a handful of them that I'll go through eBay and I'll see a card for sale, I'll know who it is, and if I'm interested in the card, I can message them directly because I already know right through Facebook exactly who they are. But there's definitely good value in a lot of these cards, and I think with and I've talked about this with the World Cup, the Women's World Cup coming up in a few weeks, the same time the National is going on. I'm hoping for a big run on some of these cards to sell some of these cards too. Um, but there was definitely good value in them. I'm sorry that they're sold out and I didn't buy more because I really enjoyed opening them. And I almost knew it's interesting with those boxes. I knew from the beginning after I opened the first box that I already knew there was good value in it. And it wasn't like you were just searching for one person or two people or one position. There's a number of people that have good value in those boxes. Um, And could you imagine if that were true of all hobby boxes, that more than 50% of the boxes had more value in the box, than what the box cost? Could you imagine how fast they would sell? The prices would just keep going up until it wasn't true, right? Uh, so I will drop that collaboration episode with Sports Card Therapist. I'll probably drop that over the weekend once they figure out how to get it. He figures out how to get it to me. And I will be back Monday with a brand new episode. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.